This whole scene, everybody dies.
Everybody's gonna die! I'm gonna kill everybody!
When you think of dragon movies, not much comes to mind. You have Dragonheart, and then you have the very popular HBO Game of Thrones. But when it comes to movies about dragons, there isn't very much out there that I could say reflect a very good apocalyptic type of movie. But there is one movie that goes flying under the radar as of today, one that people don't really think about, and when you bring it up, that everyone kind of agrees that it's a good movie but doesn't really remember how good the movie actually was. And the movie we're covering today is Reign of Fire.
A species older than the dinosaurs and more terrifying than anything we could have imagined.
How did they go from 1 to a million in less than a year?
Reign of Fire.
Reign of Fire came out in the year 2002. I can still remember the day I went and saw this in the theaters with my dad. It was the first time that I can remember a dragon movie, aside from Dragonheart. If I were to describe Reign of Fire as a movie to anyone in modern time today, I would say Mad Max meets the Elder Scrolls Skyrim. Now, if that doesn't sound badass to you, a person who's never seen this film before, then I don't know what is going to. For this time in the year 2002, CGI and practical effects were still mixing together. So you still had movies that looked just as good as Jurassic Park. Reign of Fire was no exception to this, and also had a very star-studded cast that seems to have been forgotten that were even in this film. 1. Christian Bale before Batman. 2. Gerard Butler before 300. And then, of course, the insane, as always, Matthew McConaughey, who still, in my mind, is the guy from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. The premise of the movie, set in the early 2000s of present day. A young kid goes into a mining corporation in London, and as he's visiting his mother, they have awakened a dragon. Now, as cheesy and weird as that may sound, it actually comes off really intense. The first part of this movie has you sitting there like at the edge of your seat going like, holy crap. Not only because of the tension that the movie builds at the very beginning, but because it seems so real. This is one thing about this movie that I want to go on record to say, as the acting of this entire movie from beginning to end is solid. You believe every actor, you believe how dire and stressful the situation is, how desperate people are for resources.
What you doing, Eddie? Me and a few others. We're going harvesting, Queen. No, you're not. It's not ready. We spoke about this. Half the stuff's not right. You pick it now, it won't germinate. That means no seeds. That means nothing to plant next season.
There won't be a next season. We'll be starved to death.
What is this? We can do it, Eddie. We decided, all of us. You as well. Dig in. Work together. Outlast them.
Kids can't eat hope, Queen. Edinburgh's gone. We haven't heard from Pembury or Norwich in 2 years. We're on our own, Queen.
Yeah, we know that. That's why we have to hang on. Maybe we are all that's left.
8 years I've listened to you. And for what? 2 kids and a wife buried on the road. I'm not losing these, Queen. Not when there's food out there.
Sorry, Eddie. You're not going anywhere.
Give me the keys.
You bloody take them from me.
So at the beginning of the movie, you're sitting at the edge of your seat, taken back at what you had just seen. And then you get the whole exposition from Christian Bale about how the end of the world happened. Dragons had taken over. They'd never really been gone. And it almost seems like you're watching the beginning of a fucking Elder Scrolls video game.
In the beginning, it was ignorance that destroyed us. I saw the first. But soon the world saw millions. No one knew how they spawned so fast. They swarmed like locusts, burning everything in their path, driven by one purpose: defeat. Even then, we couldn't believe they were real. Ancient man had made them into myths. But nature had made something far more terrible.
The Elder Scrolls told of their return. Their defeat was merely a delay.
Cut forward to the year 2020. The world is an apocalypse. Mankind is on the brink of extinction, and dragons have taken over the entire Earth. Christian Bale's character, the same boy at the very beginning of the film, is now holed up with these settlement of survivors who are trying desperately to survive, foraging for food, trying to plant crops, and just trying to find a way to beat the dragons. Then comes Matthew McConaughey, these Americans who know how to kill the dragons, that have killed the dragons, and have vehicles and tanks and a helicopter. That's another thing I want to say about this movie is it's very testosterone filled. I felt myself as I was watching this movie being like, yeah, we're gonna take revenge on the dragons, and we're gonna go blow some shit up, and we're gonna go fight the dragons with a fucking axe. That's one thing I found that was very hilarious about this, is Matthew McConaughey carries around a very Elder Scrolls looking axe throughout the entire film. And Matthew McConaughey, let's just go on record to say, Matthew McConaughey looks like a character straight out of the Elder Scrolls Skyrim video game, with the tattoos all over his arm, running around with an axe. And when he's getting in fistfights with Christian Bale, he's like making these dragon monster noises as he's fighting them. It's just all very surreal and a cool movie. So it turns out that all of the dragons that have taken over the Earth are all female dragons, and there's one male. And because Matthew McConaughey and his team have tracked the male down back to its main source from the beginning of the movie, London, that's their whole reason of existing, is they're gonna hunt down this one male dragon and kill it, and hopefully it will end the reign of the dragons. The dragons will starve and die out, or just move on somehow. The action is very non-stop in this movie, but also the real human drama that goes on with this movie. It almost felt like I was watching Game of Thrones, or I was watching The Walking Dead when it was still good, about the real human emotion. Like I said, the movie is solid when it comes to the acting. You really believe how desperate the situation is. You really believe how angry and sad and just, like I said, desperate the people are in this film to not only survive, but to defeat the dragons. The dragons have killed hundreds and thousands of people. Humankind is on the brink of extinction. And this one little group, a settlement of people, you really feel how sad and desperate they are to survive. Even Matthew McConaughey, who seems like a complete crazy person, you kind of sympathize with because of how he's had to fight these dragons and how many he's had to bury over time. Now, there are some plot holes and there are some things that seem a little bit strange. I don't know how they were able to get a helicopter around from America all the way over to the UK all of this time while dragons are going on. They say that they've killed like 200 dragons or something like that, but still, with a world that's been taken over with dragons and literally mankind, like I said, is on the brink of extinction, it seems a little odd that they'd still be able to have a working helicopter and tanks after all this time. You would think the depletion of gasoline, people wouldn't really have that many running cars anymore. Gerard Butler's character as Christian Bale's best friend kind of gets thrown off into the background. You kind of don't really notice him as much. He's not really a huge star, like I said, but when he does die, this is the thing, the camaraderie you feel between everyone that lives in the settlement of the movie feels real. The anger towards each other, the camaraderie towards each other, all of it feels real. So when Gerard Butler's character dies and Christian Bale's freaking out, it really feels like you just lost someone in the settlement. You feel really bad for him, and you feel bad for all the kids that are crying and screaming that he just died, because this is the guy that they looked up to. This is the guy that's like raising them as Christian Bale's doing all the leadership stuff. The part of the movie where they're reenacting Star Wars to tell the story to the kids is an awesome scene. It's something that I could see happening in a real apocalyptic situation where kids aren't brought up with movies or books anymore. It's the people that were there but in the before time telling them the stories and trying to dress up and tell kids the story. It just was a very believable moment.
The Black Knight says, and we can end this conflict forever.
Never. I'll never join you, the White Knight says. You killed my father.
the dragons. Let's talk about the dragons. The dragons were awesome. The practical effects done for the dragons, like I said, were on par with Jurassic Park. They looked that good. Now, the CGI's at time, kind of, you could tell it was CGI. You could definitely tell now. But back in 2002, that was like some of the best CGI that was ever done. Now, the ending of the movie kind of comes at an abrupt halt when they kill the final dragon, when they kill the male dragon. It seems like either they ran out of story or they ran out of budget, but the movie's ending is a little bit abrupt. Other than that, if I were to grade this movie on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably give it an 8.5, almost a 9, if it wasn't for some of the weird plot holes and weird things with the vehicles of still having a helicopter years after dragons have taken over the earth. Stuff like that that just kind of takes you out of the reality of the situation. And now, while this movie was really, really well done, the next video that we're going to do on a game review is, sadly, Reign of Fire on PS2, which is nothing like the movie, and one of the worst games I've played probably this year. So be sure to check that on the next video, and I'll see you guys on the next game review. This is Forrest from Retro or Die and VHS or Die. Be sure to subscribe, hit the like button, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you on the next video. You're not going to want to miss it.